Hey real estate nerds, this is Alex Yoder with Pro Tip Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. And today I want to just do kind of a brain dump on sort of the challenges associated with navigating the waters here being a landlord in Colorado. Not only with some of the legislation that's passed and kind of went into effect as early as August 7th of this month, but also legislation that's passed historically and kind of what that looks like for us who are doing this on a daily basis and who own properties. It's definitely not getting any easier to figure out exactly, okay, where do I need to position my lease? How do I need to position my notices? How do I screen tenants? All these various different things. And even as someone who does this every day, all day, and as someone who's heavily involved with industry trade organizations where we're hashing through these things, and as someone who's talking to attorneys regularly and getting, in many cases, 3 different points of view from attorneys and 3 different interpretations, and then trying to figure out how to make various business decisions, it's really not easy. And so I think the main point of this video is, if you are, particularly if you are self-managing, make sure you have an attorney in your corner, make sure you have an expert in your corner. Do not lean on Facebook advice when you're pulling these various triggers. With that being said, the Colorado Springs Landlord Forum group that we run is phenomenal. It's a great place to get information and to have conversations. But before you actually send somebody a lease, it should be drafted / reviewed by your attorney. And what comes to mind for me specifically is there's 2 different things that I recall from getting phone calls about here within the last couple months. Number one, I had a landlord, and I might have mentioned this in a previous video, but I had a landlord call and say, hey, I'm currently being investigated by HUD because I declined an emotional support animal. And basically I didn't know that I couldn't do that. And I thought that I was exempt because I only owned 1 house or whatever it was. And even though Colorado waives a lot of the fair housing exemptions that are federally legal. And so basically they didn't know what they didn't know. And so now they're in this very stressful situation trying to defend themselves. And hopefully they come out the other end, still with their rental property and still moving forward in a positive direction. Similarly, I had a peer who told me that they went to court over an eviction for non-payment, and because they didn't have the new paragraph that you need to have in your demand notices that spells out some of the tenants' rights if they have a disability or if they're getting Colorado Works Program cash assistance, because they didn't have that paragraph in their contract, the eviction was thrown out entirely, even though that paragraph didn't apply to the tenant and it wasn't applicable to that specific eviction. The judge basically said, you should have disclosed it. It wasn't disclosed. Now you have to restart the entire process. And that's going to cost them thousands and thousands of dollars. So again, in both these situations, you have very small, easy to mess up situations just because maybe the education wasn't there that needed to be there. And now it's costing you not only money, but also brain damage in trying to navigate it. And I'm not trying to say that we're perfect either, but what I am trying to say here is that it's very difficult to mess things up. And particularly if you're self-managing, you need to be making sure that you are regularly receiving education to keep yourself in the know on fair housing, on lease provisions, on notice requirements, on screening tenants, and all these different things. And particularly for you professional managers, stay connected. I'm part of a couple groups, NARPM, CPM. There's a bunch out there where we can hash through issues as experts and figure out how best to position these things. With that being said, as mentioned, attorneys are interpreting these bills in some cases differently. And so there are sometimes business decisions to be made, and we will just have to see going forward how some of these things work themselves out, and how legal counsel changes their point of view based on case law and that kind of thing. But it's incredibly valuable to stay educated, and that's how you protect yourself. That's how you position yourself for success. It is possible to still be a successful landlord here in Colorado, but it's definitely not getting any easier. And I will recommend that if you don't have the time to stay on the cutting edge and get that education, that you really should be hiring an expert to manage your home. And and even if you do have that time, make sure that you have legal counsel in your corner. That's really the point of this video. Hopefully this wasn't too much of a ramble, but yeah, it's getting tricky, and protect yourself. We'll see you next week.